You are the blueprint for your children. And hear me when I say this, you are not raising kids. You are raising adults. These kids will be adults for a lot more of their life than they will be kids. And so it's your responsibility to teach them like what great adults look like, so that when they become an adult themselves, they know how to recognize it when they see it in themselves. And so your kids won't always say what you do, or they won't always do what you say, but you can be sure that they're going to do what you do.
Welcome to the Love Your Brand podcast. If you're looking for real conversations with real people, you're the right place. Let's go!
Mitchell, welcome, brother. Welcome to the Love Your Brand podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation, boys.
Good to have you, man. Sorry we can't be out in the woods like Jason there.
Hey, Jay Hill said it was a fake backdrop, but y'all, this is 100% real in the mountains of Hendersonville, Blue Ridge.
Love it.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Beautiful mountain air.
I told him that he looks like Sasquatch sitting in the woods with a microphone coming out the side.
He's like a high-tech Sasquatch.
Something, man. You know, but the irony is, like, you can tell Mitchell's set up. I mean, he's got a good camera, good backdrop. Like, you can tell he's in a nice place. My background is actually fake, but it looks real. And Jason's, he's actually in the woods, but his looks like a digital backdrop to me.
100% Photoshop, bro.
This is not digital, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. So, Mitchell, we didn't want to miss this. I'm on vacation, and Jay Hill, he's in Nashville. And I said, bro, we've got to make this happen because, I chatted with Mitchell for a while, and he was dropping so many gems. I was like, we've got to get this out. We've got to share this information. So once again, thank you for joining us and this whole new, our new backdrops kind of on the go, let's call it. We've been talking about doing that more on the go podcast. So this is awesome. This is like a test for us.
Well, Mitchell, I don't even know if you know. So the Love Your Brand show is a mobile studio. And so at Jason's house down in South Carolina, it's in the side yard, this mobile RV. We're going to get the whole thing wrapped on the outside with the brand. Last summer, we actually took it to Nashville. So we had 6 episodes out here in Nashville and we brought it. And so it gives us the potential to really be a true road show of taking it to different places, so we don't have to do it virtually. So next time we need to come visit you, where are you actually?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta, which is right outside the Rocky Mountains in Canada. So if you think of where Montana is, I'm right above Montana. So,
dude, I've been to Calgary, been to Banff, Banff Springs Hotel. That area is amazing.
Yeah, dude. I just had a mastermind with my men's community out in Banff, and 3 days in the Rocky Mountains, man, it was powerful. Did hikes, masterminds, great food. It was a blast. I mean, Banff is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I mean, so it's really cool to live so close to there.
Yeah, man. There's some good beef up there too.
Oh yeah, man. Alberta beef. This is where it's at, bro.
Right.
That's where it's at.
Dude,
Jason,
we'll see how this podcast goes with Mitchell today, because the way we can deem success is if you and I sign up for the next mastermind in Banff by the end of this call.
There we go.
Heck yeah.
There we go. I love it. And one thing you'll notice, fun fact, Mitchell, when I was chatting with him, I was like, bro, where are you from? Like, you're from home. Like, he doesn't have the normal, Canadian accent. Couldn't even catch a tidbit. So
it's funny. Everyone asks what part of the States I'm from. And I'm like, I'm actually from Canada. And even more so, I was born in Newfoundland, which is like far, far East Coast, which have a really strong accent. And I'm like, no, man, I'm from Canada. They're like, I'm sorry, what? But
even the way you said that, man, because down here we say Newfoundland and you were like Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Newfoundland. Yeah.
Well, totally, man. And the reason why is because, podcasting and coaching, like 90% of my followers and listeners are from the States. Most of my guests are from the States, the experts and influencers I, interview, and like clients. So literally I talk with Americans all day. And, that's why I sound like an American. It's so funny.
That's right. That's right. And we're talking about the Dad's Nation podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rated top 10% globally with over 33,000 listeners. So talk to us about that, Mitchell. That's what I'm excited about. What's the purpose?
Yeah, man. Well, here's the thing. The reason I guess you're asking is why did I start all this? Yeah. Is that kind of why?
That's it.
Well, I'm going to take some notes here while I'm talking because I have a tendency to think faster than I can speak. So I want to make sure I hit all the points. But really, man, the vision behind the Dad Nation is all about helping men reclaim their home and their health and their happiness, right? And so the reason why is from a childhood, for me, I grew up in a dysfunctional home. I grew up, I had a non-existent relationship with my father, who's an alcoholic. My whole family was riddled with crime, with drug abuse, alcohol, you name it. And so I grew up in the midst of this kind of dysfunction and really struggled, had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I had it all on lock until I got married. And then when I got married, the wounds that I had healed began to bleed into my marriage, and so I was always in senior leadership positions. But then, I got in a situation when I was married where I hear some birds chirping. That's amazing. Where is that from?
That's Jason, man. He's out the woods.
Hey, man, Bigfoot in the wilderness. You never know.
Did
What
you think
hear.
that was Riverside? I dropped some birds, just
I
as
know,
you're telling the story, like try to make it real personal.
Are you trying to add some ambiance to this conversation? It was just, wow, it was amazing. High-tech Sasquatch is friends with birds. I love it. Okay, let me keep going. I'll try to avoid the birds. I'll just embrace it.
Embrace it, brother.
No, and so what happened, guys, is, I got let go of the senior leadership position and my life started to spiral. And I gained about 60 pounds. We were about $100,000 in debt. And, I was medicating with alcohol, with drugs, with, you name it, to just kind of cope. And I was just a shell of a man. And we got in a huge fight one day. And this fight was different. And I was like, man, I think this is over. I think I'm going to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was tough. And about a week later, people asked me, what was your turning point? And for me, there was two. The first one was that fight that I had, that rock bottom moment with my wife. The second was a week later. I was singing at a funeral for this super wealthy philanthropic man. There was a couple thousand people at this funeral. And the minister was wrapping up the funeral. And I was strapping on my guitar, getting ready to sing the last song. And he asked the people in the room, and he said, are you living a life worthy of imitation?
Wow.
If you were to die today, would you be content? Would you be happy with the legacy you left? Right. And guys, when I was trying to strap on the guitar and sing the last few lyrics to the song, and I could barely choke out the lyrics because I thought, man, if I walked out of this church today and I got hit by a bus, no one would want the life that I'm living. Nobody would say, man, I want the marriage that Mitch had, or I want the body Mitch had, or I want to live with the vitality and vigor like Mitch did. In fact, you know what? The only thing I knew at that point is that people would say at my funeral, he struggled and then it was over, and it was sad, dude. So that day I walked out of that church and I said, I'm going to take ownership of my life, that I'm going to take ownership of everything, my past, my present, and my future. And this generational cycle, this alcoholism, this drug abuse, this trauma ends with me, and it won't end if I don't. And if I ever, at that point, we didn't have kids. I'm like, if I ever have a shot at ending this curse, it's with me right now. And so, yeah, man, I woke up the next day. I tried to run a 5K and I made it about 250 meters and I puked.
Wow.
But I started this journey, surrounded myself with men who, and I say this seriously, I surrounded myself with 5 men who my ceiling was their floor. You understand what I mean? My guys who were living where I wanted to go, men in my life who knew everything that I wanted to be and could give me the exact steps to help me get there and help me to show me how to get there for myself, to help me believe in myself. And so anyways, man, within a year and a half, we completely restored our marriage. We paid off over $100,000 of debt. We got, I lost about 60 pounds, built a strong, lean body. and then was totally free of substances and had a sober, focused, and clear mind.
Amen.
And so, yeah, man, it was a powerful transformation. And then so one of my buddies said, man, if you really want to, have an impact, then you need to do something about this and start helping people. And so I started helping friends of mine because, again, I'm in this position of leadership, very public. People are asking questions like, dude, what are you doing, man? How did you lose that weight? How are you and Sam so, on fire in your marriage? Or how did you pay off all that debt? So I started helping my friends just for free. And then someone said, you should start a podcast and teach all these principles. So I did that, and that was only a year and a half ago. And within a few months, I had people listening from all over North America. And then I started getting DMs of like, man, can you coach me? Can you teach me? Can you show me how to do what you did? And then so about 9 months ago, I started up a coaching practice, and that scaled to 6 figures. And so over the last 18 months, I've launched, a top 10%, globally rated podcast and a 6-figure coaching business, all on just the transformation of what happened in my life about 8 years ago, so that's how I kind of got here.
Dude, what a powerful story. I got like lots of questions, kind of want to go back. So when you were like senior leadership from work, so were you kind of like in the corporate environment?
Yeah. Overseeing multiple teams and board meetings. And that was the thing, you guys, like I would say to myself, like, why I get home from work and I'd be like, why is this? I'm so powerful at work, but I'm powerless when I get home. Like I can lead teams and lead board meetings, and I come home and I don't even know how to talk to my own wife, and it was just like, I felt this tension, and maybe your listeners can connect with this feeling of like this success at work, but this struggle at home. And that's ultimately what led me to go down this journey, because I realized, at that point, at that funeral, I was like, what good is it to have all this success and this money and this influence if I'm going to be sitting around the Christmas tree alone this year? Yeah. If my wife is renting out of an apartment and I'm alone, or what's the good in generating all this stuff if at the end of the day I got no one to celebrate it with, to share it with, right? Yeah. And so that's the irony, man. I was focused. I was chasing after all the things that really at the end of my life wouldn't matter. And really I had it completely backwards, because the true influence, like if I was supposed to perform, like be a high performer in any area, it should be at home first, right?
100%. And
so, yeah, man, that's kind of where I was at.
So was your identity like rooted in your work?
100%.
Yeah. I think that's where so many men can, resonate with this. And, my background was in the corporate world, and just, I was chasing the corporate ladder, climbing the corporate ladder, like, just each year going to get a little raise, move up the totem pole kind of a thing. And it's like, it was so easy to kind of just turn that on and do well. Then you go home, it's like God gives us these spouses, to where men and women are wired so different. You have the vulnerability, the honesty, the transparency, the conversations, all the ways that we connect with our spouses. And it's like, I don't have to do this at work. I'm gone all day long doing this. Now I got to come home and talk to somebody that we're like opposite ends of the spectrum, So for you with your story, like, what was it that was, you're thriving at work, but you're struggling at home and your marriage is almost over? Like, what was it that was the struggle for you when you got home?
Yeah, man. So, for me, that's a great question, man. So thank you for asking. There were a few things, communication obviously was huge, I was like, but the problem was I was treating my wife like an employee.
Oh, wow.
Right. I was leading our date nights like a board meeting. And so, our date nights felt like board meetings, just with alcohol. And let me unpack that for a little bit, because, and here's why we get into trouble, especially as men, if you're men and you're listening, when we talk about, the masculine essence, right? When we talk about the true essence of masculinity, it's driven by mission, by accomplishments, by excellence, right? That's why guys love fantasy leagues and they're obsessed with sports and stuff, because it is some of the best people in the world, the most talented, they're very mission driven, right? Women, the feminine, essence, and men and women both have feminine and masculine essences. So I'm not gendering anybody or anything, but I'm just saying, in the essence of femininity, it's more driven by nurturing, by emotions, by intuition, all those different things. So here's the problem though. is men, that's how we're wired, is we love a strong mission and a purpose, and we love to achieve and to, all those different things. And so when we're at work, we're really great at doing that. But when we come home, we still wear that hat, and we're still trying to get the tangible, measurable results. But how do you measure success in your marriage? How do you measure success in your mindset? Well, at work, it's really easy. Well, I get a performance bonus.
Yeah.
Or the numbers are higher in Q3 or whatever. It's so tactical and simple, right? And I can build systems and frameworks around it, and I can measure my success. But when I come home, how do I find any sort of tactical evidence of my success in my marriage, right? Or like, how do I get proof that I'm more calm and I'm more, whatever, I'm in a better place mentally or emotionally? These things are all intangible and are really hard for guys to wrap their heads around. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And women also are not motivated the same way. And so the things that we care about are totally different. And my wife does not care about the amount of money that I make or the strategies that I'm implementing or whatever. She cares about if we can connect on a deep emotional level. She cares if I care about her. She cares if I'm engaged and I'm giving her my eyes and I'm showing up in the moment. And that's actually not really what I care about that much. And so what happens is I start leading my home like a bunch of staff that I'm leading at work. And so I was challenged by this question one day. And this is a question that I ask my clients often. And I asked one guy last week on a call. He said, I don't understand, man. I come home and I tell her how it is and she just doesn't get it. And I'm telling her, this is what you need to do. And this is what you need to do. And this is what you need to do. And she's just like, she just gets frustrated. And I said, listen, man, how many people do you lead at work? He said, well, I got a team of about 45 men. So, okay. So you got a team of 45 guys. I said, how many of those people are you having sex with? And he was like, none.
Hopefully
I'm
zero.
like, yeah. So I'm like, so why are you going home and treating your wife the exact same way you're treating these 45 men when you have an entirely different relationship? You're sleeping with this woman. You have an intimate relationship. She sees all parts of you. These 45 guys, that there's this entirely different relationship. The same rules do not apply. So stop trying to lead your wife the way you're leading these guys in a boardroom, because it just doesn't work. And as long as you're trying to keep hammering that, it's just not going to connect at home. And so stop treating your wife like your employee and start treating her like the bride that she is, right? And that requires a flip of the switch. And we got to get out of that mode of like leading the boardroom or, whatever the case is, the metrics and the mission mindset, and say, what does it look like for me to show up powerfully in this moment with this beautiful woman that I've married? Does that make sense?
100%.
Totally.
100%.
Totally.
It's a mindset shift that has to happen. And I think almost every male on the planet, struggles with this. And Mitchell, I'd be curious from your perspective, where do you think this starts? Where is this ingrained? Because as you're sharing from your past, the dysfunctional family that you grew up in, I grew up in a very functional family. I have amazing family, amazing parents. And, it's like, it doesn't matter if you come from dysfunction or you come from function. We still struggle with those same things. We still have the same vices and addictions and drugs and alcohol to, cope with, all the crap and the trauma that we've gone through. So even though you and I have completely different home lives that we grew up in, still struggle with the exact same things that you do, So like, where do you think that happens for a man, of really kind of doing well over here at work and not at home?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think, it's a combination of things, man. I want to talk about our past, where we come from, and then also, our present situation and how we're wired and how it kind of sets us up for, I don't want to say sets us up for failure, but it can certainly set us up for success if we apply it the right way. But in general, men struggle with communicating their emotions, right? So we know that to connect with a woman physically, you must first connect with her emotionally. That's a big mistake we make. Now, the problem is men are wired the opposite way. You connect with a man emotionally by connecting with him physically first. All right. You think about, having sex or whatever, the pillow talk after, the guys are just like willing to cuddle and talk about, whatever, to talk about their feelings. But the physical comes first. Women are the complete opposite. They do not want to go to bed with you if you've not connected with them emotionally first. And so first off, we're totally backwards in how we approach one another intuitively. Right. But let's think about, so it's important for us to understand, it's universally understood that we need to learn how to connect with our wives emotionally. But let's just go back a few generations and understand why is it that as men are so uncomfortable talking about our feelings and connecting on an emotional level. Well, let's talk about the world wars, shall we? We're not too many generations removed from men who came home with extreme trauma, and absolutely no tools to deal with it, no tools to deal with the PTSD. And so what did they do? They medicated, they drank, they whatever to be able to deal with it, right? They stuffed it down. Real men don't cry, deal with it, own it, right? Move on, talk about it. And so those men stuffed it, which honestly, I'm thankful for that generation. They're a great generation, but emotionally they were just under-equipped. And so then they had children, and then they had children. But what did they do? Of course, they were taught they taught us what they were taught, which was stuff it, right? Don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so now we are just 2 or 3 generations away from extreme PTSD and a very unhealthy way of processing emotions. And so as in general, men, now, of course, there are some men who are very in tune with their emotions, but for the vast majority of men, we're just uncomfortable and we don't have language for it. And there's actually a psychological term around this. It's called normative male alexithymia. And you can look it up and you can Google it. But this is psychological term to really explain that men find it really difficult to talk about how they feel and to share what their challenges are, right? And we actually sometimes freeze up, we clam up because we don't even have the words. And even if we did have the words, we're uncomfortable. Because let's be real, say if the 3 of us weren't all separated and we were going out to the pub, have a few beers. And if out of nowhere, guys, I'm just like, you know what, guys, I'm just feeling really insecure right now. And I'm just like, my heart is just broken for, what's going on at home. You'd be like, bro, what?
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah. So even if I did have the right language to use, I mean, it'd be so uncomfortable to share, right? And so we got to understand that where we come from generations of actually not being comfortable talking about our feelings. And now we've got these advanced systems and tools to be able to do it, but yet we still struggle. And that's fine. That's normal. The first step is understanding that. Now in the present moment, now because we do have tools and accesses and communities and resources, now we got to learn how to connect with our wife. Right? We got to learn how to draw her in through the power of great questions and all that stuff. Right. And so and then the present is where we come to our, wiring, like I said, our masculinity versus our femininity. Right. And the way, again, this is a general statement, but when you think about, let's say a Super Bowl party, when you go to a Super Bowl party, where do you typically see the men gather?
On the couch in front of the TV.
On the couch in front of the TV. Where do you
chicken wings?
Where do you typically see the women?
In the kitchen, around the counter.
In the kitchen, around the counter, so maybe sipping a glass of wine, right? Just talking about the relationships. Hey, how are the kids? How are things going?
It's like a middle school dance. The guys are over there, the girls are over there.
100%, and it's how we're wired, right? Because remember, the essence, the women are driven by intuition, by emotions, by your relationship fostering that, right? Men are driven by mission, by purpose, by excellence. And so we have to understand that we're wired differently and learn how to connect to one another, despite our differences. And when we can do that, that's what's powerful, right?
Yeah.
And so does that make sense? That's kind of why we get that disconnect.
And when they ask you something, they want to know details. Right. And we're not wired that way. It's like, what's going on? What's going on today? I'm working. Got a couple meetings.
How was your day? Good.
Yeah. No, she wants step by step, like play by play. What is Mitchell? What's he look like? How was his voice? What did y'all talk about? Yeah. And hey, bro, that's real. But one thing I noticed, so like, enduring that and getting better at it. And at one point, I was a completely separate person at work and at home, right? And then it was like, I started kind of, I'm assuming it's different for everybody. I found myself in a place to where, I wanted to be grateful when I was at home and at work and in life in general. So me personally, I started merging the two, and actually the nurturing helped me in business, right? And the communication helped me in business, but also in business strategically, it helped me in my marriage. So instead of being so separated and segregated, right? Mm-hmm. It was like this bipolar effect. I was like, bro, that's even hard. That can't be good for you to be living a double life. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. How do I take the best of both and just be me? Like, be me here, be me there. You know, I'm not where I don't have to put on a facade here or a facade there, or, you know, now I do increase what my D and S or something in my disc profile when I'm at work.
DI.
Because I have to.
You're DI.
Yeah. But when I started doing that, well, my first marriage was a train wreck. That didn't work out. So, you know, rock bottom, same story, Mitchell. You know, we all rock bottom, rock star, whatever. It's like, then I was like, how do I marry these? You know, how do I truly be happy? Right. And it comes with, you know, your fitness, like you say, your relationship and your mindset. And when you focus on those three cores, and I found it's like, how do I stay consistent with all three? So it's like, I'm not living this duality. I'm living this singularity mindset. Right. And to where I'm grateful at work, you know, if someone does share, Jay Hill's like, oh man, the day sucks. You know, I'm like, I'm more empathetic. You know, when they ask me a question, they probably want more details, because just like at home, Jonathan is like, what was going on with this project? Oh, you know, man, this and that and that. No, he needs details, just like my wife, right? So, bro, it helps, right? It helps both ways, you know, that nurturing. And then anyway, that's what I found. That's what I found really intriguing.
I think it worked too. Like, from my background in corporate, they don't care about your feelings, right? Like in the corporate environment, they care how little can we pay you, how much can you work, how much can you produce, how much can you move the needle. I don't care what you feel. I don't care if you're happy, sad, this and that. I mean, I know there's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, that's what it is. I remember early on, you know, spent a lot of time, a lot of money in counseling and therapy. And going back, Mitchell, what you're talking about with these feelings, where, you know, a counselor is like, well, Jonathan, tell me what you're feeling, you know, and it's like they're speaking a foreign language. It's like, what are you asking me? And there was a counselor I went to, they actually have a feeling sheet. I don't know if you've ever gotten this. It's a front and back paper with more feelings than there are words in the dictionary. And, you know, I'd pause. I'd spend 5 minutes going up and down columns. And I'm like, that one, that's what I'm feeling. You know, but because my vocabulary of feelings back then was, I feel good, I feel bad, I feel happy, I feel sad. It was like those four, you know, what I had. But Mitchell, what you were sharing a second ago, have you ever heard of John Eldredge, the author?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. So like Wild at Heart, his book, he says every man has three core needs: a battle to fight, a beauty to rescue, and an adventure to live in. And, you know, it was like that book, I read it in high school for the first time. And it was like the first thing that really captivated my heart, like woke me up. Like, yeah, this is what I'm fighting for. But kind of how you started this conversation, Mitchell, is like, I don't know how to get there. And I'm struggling with all this stuff. You know, you put me in a room with guys, you put me out in the woods with the guys, dude, we can make it happen. We're having a blast. There is no problem in the world. You put me, I mean, this is more wounded Jonathan, you know, before who I am today, but in a room with this woman that wants to be intimate, vulnerable, share all this stuff. I'm like, I feel like a toddler that doesn't know how to communicate.
Yeah, 100%. And you're not wrong. And again, that vocabulary, that missing vocabulary is a part of that normative male alexithymia, like what I'm talking about. And this generational, like we don't talk about it. We don't, you know, and then we grow up in corporate environments that don't encourage it, which is fine. Like, or not we grow up, but we work in corporate environments. It's all about metrics. It's all about tactical movements and strategies. And so you're submersed in this environment all the time. And you come home and it's like, well, none of that works here, you know? And then you feel like a fish out of water, right? And so that's exactly why, I mean, I have the same conversation over and over and over again with my clients, because it's the same problem and it's the same lack of tools and resources. And so before I forget, I want to give a gift to your listeners. And it's just a simple PDF, and it's just called the 50 question, or it's called the connection code. Okay. So it's 50 questions that will spark the fun and bring the fire back in your marriage. And so these questions, you can take any one of the 50 and ask your wife or your partner or whatever on a date night, or when you put the kids down. And every question is designed to draw her out into, like, they're not just dead end questions like, how'd you sleep? How was work? How are the kids? No. Same dead end questions, same dead end answers. Yeah, good. Yeah. So I want to just say that before I forget it, because
Awesome.
it's a powerful resource that so many men enjoy. But I'll say this: there are three. You talk about three needs of every man, right? I believe there are three needs of every woman. And for the men listening, this has been profound, and I'm serious when I say I've used this to transform the marriages of so many men. But your wife or your partner needs to feel seen, heard, and safe. Okay, these three things: seen, heard, and safe. Now, so many women. Let's break down seen for a moment. So many women, they feel there's three A's to the seen model. They feel underappreciated. They need affection. So they need appreciation, affection, and acknowledgement, right? And so think about our marriages for a moment. When we stop being intentional, we stop appreciating. We stop saying, hey, thank you so much for dinner tonight. It was amazing. Like, I know you put a ton of work into that. And, maybe the kids weren't grateful, but I am, or whatever. Affection. And I'm not talking about putting moves on her before you go to bed. I'm talking about when you pass her in the hallway, rubbing her back, just, stroking her shoulder or something, or when she's washing the dishes, putting your arm around her, or when you're washing. I'm not saying she's got to wash the dishes. We all do.
Got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just finding small passing moments to be affectionate, and then acknowledgement, right? Thank you so much for how you're a mother to our kids, or you're an incredible wife, and you're just acknowledging her efforts and who she is, right? So that's to feel seen. To feel heard is to be focused, and to be and I teach my men about active listening, which is a technique that you can use that can really draw in your wife and really and that you can use to stay focused. Because how many times do we check out? We say, hey, how was your day? And then they actually start telling us, and they're like, you're not even listening.
Right.
And so this active listening model draws you in to help you stay focused on what she's saying. So she truly feels heard, right? And then the last one is the need to feel safe. Okay. Now these can be broken down into 4 categories. A lot of men, when we say, well, your wife needs to feel safe, they think, well, I gotta have a black belt in jujitsu. I need to be able to protect her. Well, yeah, physical safety is part of it, but the bigger 3 are actually there's emotional, financial, relational, and then physical. Okay, so real quick, I'll unpack them. Emotional safety. She needs to feel safe at home, in the sense of, like, she needs to know that when she talks about how she's feeling, that you're not going to belittle her feelings, or you're not going to make her feel like it doesn't matter, or you're going to try and fix it or get her out of it. She needs to feel safe talking about what's going on, right? Number 2, relationally safe. She needs to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're not looking elsewhere, that you don't have a wandering eye, that you're not on Instagram looking at chicks or OnlyFans or whatever. You're not on the verge of stepping out on her. She needs to feel relationally safe at all times. Number 3, financially safe. Now, I'm not saying that it's good to provide. I'm not saying you need to be the only provider, but I'm saying you have to be a trustworthy man financially, that you're not going to go out and blow all the money on booze or drugs or gambling or whatever, that she knows that you're stewarding your finances well, and that you're putting her and the kids first financially. And lastly, physically safe. Not just that you can protect her, but that you're not going to be a danger to her. Like when you raise your voice to you and you're coming at her, do you punch a hole through the wall? Do you, do something a little bit, out of control? And then if so, then that's a problem. She needs to feel physically safe. And the best way that I heard it explained was that when my wife comes home, or when I come home, I want my wife to be able to literally turn her brain off, to say, Mitchell's home, I can relax. Instead of, oh shit, Mitchell's home, yeah, I got to step it up. You know what I mean? Because now I got to walk on eggshells because I don't want to upset him, So seen, heard, safe, those 3 needs, if you can meet those with your wife, dude, you can transform your marriage from on the verge of divorce, like where I was, to, a thriving marriage. Does that make sense? Hopefully that
absolutely
makes sense to you.
Now, Mitchell, that's a lot of responsibility. We're men. I guess we were made to carry that weight, right?
Yeah.
To carry the weight of pretty much it all. But on the same token, it's working on us, the dads, the fathers. But, women, you got to work on yourselves too, right? Because you can bring your A game, Dad's Nation, But on the same token, we need a woman's nation too, right? Because let's face it, some of these women, you got some work to do. So if there's not a woman's nation out there, that's a business idea, right, Mitchell? I don't know. Maybe your wife's got one. Y'all seem to be rock stars, but no, that is awesome, Mitchell. The way you explained that and broke that down and unpacked it, I think all the men listening here are like, yep.
You know, the interesting thing with stuff like that is that none of these principles, none of these things that we need to do are difficult, honestly. When you break it down, they're not these complex strategies. You know, the key for relationship is exactly what you just said. What you said about our wives need to be seen, need to be heard, need to feel safe. It's the same, but that's how you build a business. That's how you grow a business. You know, when too often in business, we go out and we just talk about ourselves. And, you know, our target market, our audience, they don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. You're not like, you don't understand my problem. You're just trying to sell your product.
Yep.
And so it's the exact same thing. And an exercise that I've learned over the years, like sitting with my wife, is, you know, after they communicate, is spitting that back to her. And so it's like sitting, making that face-to-face eye contact and saying, babe, what I heard you say was blah, blah, blah. And there have been times just like, I didn't say that at all, you know, and not in an ugly way, but it's beautiful to practice those things, because now it saves us from going down a conversation where we've made up stories in our head about what the other person said or is feeling, as opposed to giving that opportunity for her to say, all right, thanks for trying. What I actually said was XYZ. And then we continue that conversation. And again, it's like, well, that's simple. How did I miss this for so many decades of just maintaining a normal conversation by asking, did I hear you correctly or understand correctly? So all that to say, it's like these simple things, and, you know, we overlook. I think men were just created so simple and like going into the work mode, you know, versus here. And we try to overcomplicate or think, well, there has to be more here. It can't be that simple just to ask my wife, you know, these things. And so that's fantastic, Mitchell.
Man, I got so many wrong one time. Dude, I got like 8 wrong in a row. I was active listening and still just, and I thought it was World War III at the end of it. I was like, at the end of it, she was like, we are completely on separate pages here. And I'm just like, oh crap. Come on, Jay, get with it. Focus. Hey, it's easy, but it's hard. Let's face it. We're not built that way. It's practice, right? It's every day is, you know,
it's simple,
slowly
not
getting
easy.
Better. Simple, not
Yeah,
easy.
it's simple, not easy. And I'll give you a couple real quick, simple things that can make it more easy for you. Because, you know, and you guys are both married, right? Okay. So sometimes, tell me if this connects with you, and your listeners, let me know if this connects with you. But when your partner or your spouse or your wife is talking about something that is bothering her, you know, she doesn't always, we know this in theory. Another thing that's really simple, but not always easy, is she doesn't want us to fix the problem. She just wants us to listen. And we know that in theory, but you know what that feels like? It feels like we're standing in front of a house that's completely engulfed in flames, and you got a fire hose and you can't turn it on, and you just got to sit there and watch it burn.
Man, right? It's like you're itching from the inside out.
Spot on, Mitchell. Just
tell
me
like, I can turn it on.
Fix.
I can turn it on. I can turn on the hose. I can put it the fire. No, okay, I'm just gonna watch it burn.
Oh man, that one.
And I actually start, and I'm like, all right, babe, do you want me to give you like a solution, or do you just want me to listen? Like,
exactly.
Fantastic. Yes.
That question was what I was going to say. One of the best simple questions is when my wife starts talking, I say, hey, just 1 second real quick, just so I understand. I just want to show up like powerfully for you. So what you're saying is this something where you just want me to listen, or is this a situation where you want me to help you fix it?
Yes.
And then she's like, no, I don't want you to fix this. I just want you to listen. And I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, go
Pressure's
ahead.
off.
Talk away.
Yeah. Give her, you know, But then sometimes she's like, actually, you know what? I'd like your help with a solution. I'm like, all right, game on, let's go, you know? And so it just, it's so liberating because it takes the guesswork out. You're like,
Totally.
I don't have to bring a solution
Setting
anymore.
that context up front.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it felt awkward. Like when you first started introducing that, it's kind of awkward, right? Because your auto mode is, like you said, you see a burning house, you want to save, right? And fix and protect. So I still find that challenging to ask that question. You know, we'll just be hanging out, you know, long, hard day, and maybe working on something together, and she'll just start talking, and just automatically I'll forget, go into fixing mode. And she's like, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Which
You wanted me to listen.
Honestly, the heart behind it is not bad.
No,
and I think our wives would agree with that. It's like, hey, I appreciate in a healthy relationship, I appreciate and admire that you want to fix this for me. But what I actually need is, and let them communicate that. And that's what Mitchell, what you're saying, you know, I mean, how often they just want to be heard. Like, don't bulldoze, don't come in. Just let me know that you heard what I said and that you can empathize that, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm frustrated with this, kind of a thing. But I love when my wife wants me to fix it, you know, and I don't know if that's something as a man to where we just feel powerful. Like, yeah, you know, I feel more like a man if you let me come in and just take care of the situation. And I feel kind of soft and passive. You just want me to listen? Like, do you know what I'm created for? Do you know what I can do? Like, come on, let me pull the muscle out. Let's take care of this.
Well, yeah, and that's tapping into the essence of your masculinity, which is mission driven. And you want to feel like a man, so you want to save the damsel in distress. You want to be on a mission, and so you're always, whether you consciously realize it or not, you're constantly looking for a mission. And this actually requires us to deny sort of that natural wiring in the moment and put the mission aside, or maybe just reassign the mission and say maybe the mission is to just sit and listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. The mission can be just to simply listen. That's awesome. I'll give you an example. It just happened yesterday. And like for me, it can be the smallest little wins that make me feel like a man. And my wife, the garage door opener wasn't working. And so it's like spotty, you know, you have to get that certain angle on the driveway for the garage to open. So battery is like spotty. She had that thing open, had like the control panel, this whole thing, like a little computer chip, everything. She couldn't figure out how to take the battery out. She's like, I've tried everything. And she's like, can you get this out? So immediately inside, yeah, I can get this out. And the thing was all bent from how much she had tried. And, you know, I analyzed this thing and just get a little screwdriver and just push on one side, it pops right out. And she's like blown away, like, thank you so much. And, you know, I mean, the pride I felt like for just accomplishing this tiny little task. It was like, you needed my help. And I came in and I delivered. And it's like these small wins. They don't have to be these huge things. And, oh man, it gave me a good chuckle.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to feel needed in your house, go in the pantry and start tightening all the lids on all the pickle jars. And real quick, you'll find out, hey, honey, can you open it? And then all of a sudden you go, oh, yeah, I got that, babe.
I know my wife, when I'm not around, she's like, pop, 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 pop. But when I'm there, she's like, here, honey. Like,
yeah.
Hey, but you're right. And when you've got those good vibrations going and just the good energy at home, wow, how does it impact when you take that same passion and energy to business, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's ultimately why I work with CEOs and VPs and leaders and you know brand developers and entrepreneurs, is because of the fact that the funny thing about all this is when we tune in their emotions and their mindset and their fitness and their marriages, and when you tune in their home life, their professional life begins to skyrocket because they're showing up more powerfully than they ever have at work, because they got more passion, more tenacity, more vision, more energy. And so that's the beautiful thing, is I'm not an executive coach, but every single one of my clients sees some sort of significant professional ceiling being broken because they are operating on a whole different level.
You know what's so interesting about the physical aspect? Like, look at some of these bigwigs in the industry, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg's, you know, used to be these nerdy little, you know, great at business, but nerdy guys that have Jeff Bezos got jacked up, right? And these executives, they understand the importance of physical health. in business and how they're not separate, how they go hand in hand, the confidence that it brings, the vitality, all these aspects that physical health brings. Because Mitchell, I mean, health is like one of the most important things, in my life. I mean, apart from my faith, apart from my family, it's health, and trying to teach this to the kids as well. And so, I mean, your podcast, Dead Nation, so I mean, I know we talked a lot about more as husbands, but how about from the fathering perspective? Like, I'm curious, how many kids do you have, their ages, and like, where was this shift that you were learning of how you were showing up at work and what was missing at home? How's that kind of carried over into fathering? Did you struggle the same way as being a father as you were as a husband? Or, how do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, again, for me, the brand is fairly new. And so I launched this when I had my son. And so my son is 19 months old. So I'm a fairly new biological dad, but I will say this. I have, again, part of my, growing up in the dysfunction, my sister had 3 daughters, and she was much older than me. So my nieces are, only 10 years younger than me. But, I took all 3 of those in at one point or another when they were teenagers for, depression, suicide attempts or ideation, drugs, you name it. And so, when me and my wife got married, before we even had our own kid, we had 3 teenage girls live with us and helped, recover them and helped, teach them how to live and recover from, drugs and depression and anxiety and all that stuff. So we have a bit of a fast track to parenting before we even were parents ourselves. But what I learned on the journey with them, and then what I'm learning now with my son, and why I think this is most important for fathers to listen to, is that you are the blueprint for your children, right? Your children will, and hear me when I say this, you are not raising kids, you are raising adults. Okay. These kids will be adults for a lot more of their life than they will be kids. And so it's your responsibility to teach them what great adults look like, so that when they become an adult themselves, they know how to recognize it when they see it in themselves. Right. And so your kids won't always say what you do, or they won't always do what you say, but you can be sure that they're going to do what you do. Right. Yeah. Statistically, we know that they have an 86% chance of repeating the exact same lifestyle habits that you do. Okay. It's crazy. So if you're making bad choices in your diet and you're not prioritizing your health, so will they. Mm-hmm. If you're disrespecting your wife or your husband, so will they. You know what I mean? If you have an anger issue and you have a time management issue, or you're struggling, whatever the case is, drugs, alcohol, so will they. And this is not just theory. This is statistics. We know this to be true. And so what's the best way to raise great children to be great adults is to model that for them, because I know that my son will become the man that I am today.
Yeah.
And so I need to become the man that I want my son to be. And I know that should I have a daughter, she's going to grow up to crave the attention from a man just like me. Mm-hmm. I know that to be true. Mm-hmm. So when she grows, like if I have a daughter, I need to be the man that I want her to marry someday.
Right.
Right. And so you want to talk about generational curses and how to break them and all that stuff. Because I can talk all I want about like the importance of being healthy, and eating clean and all that stuff. But if I'm 80 pounds overweight and stuffing my mouth full of donuts all the time, guess what? They're going to do it too.
Yeah.
And so if anyone needs to adopt this, it's the fathers in the room, because we carry a significance in the home. We carry an emotional and a physical impact, in the home, and they will follow what we do. And so it's important to understand that you are the blueprint and they are watching everything, right?
100%, man. And when you have a girl, man, you just wait. Boy, I can't even begin to tell. I mean, Jason and I both have girls, and it tugs at your heart in a way that you never know, until you have your one. And, you talk about the example that you lead. It's one of the things I've learned, when, I have a great relationship with my daughter, and the times where, I make her cry, whether my tone was too stern or, I'm stressed out, and then my fuse is short with her. And I just learned at an early on age with her, to humble myself and never come across as, I'm up here, you're down here. It's like, we're both humans. Yes, I'm your father, you're my daughter. I need to teach you and respect and all this stuff, but you're still a human. I get down on the floor. I get
Yes.
her level, eye to eye. And I'm like, baby, I was so wrong for X, Y, Z. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And that has just been something that, we do from the get-go. And just the unconditional acceptance, love, and forgiveness that this child will give to me every time for my messing up. But I never want to be so proud where, well, I'm dad, and I did that and it's okay. Like you're exactly right. I want to lead by example and show her, look, when you meet a man one day and that this guy is trying to, date you, marry you, this and that, I want her to know what to look for, to where, he should humble himself, and come down and do all these things. I was talking to my wife recently about this. It's like with a child, there's that innocence, when my daughter does something wrong, she's not trying to hurt me. She doesn't know. She's growing and developing. Her brain is not close to development yet. But as we get to adults, like sometimes it gets hard for me. Let's say my wife and I get into some tension. I don't get that same way that I get with my daughter. I don't get down, look, at her, get tender, and baby, I'm so sorry. I was wrong for this. It takes a little longer, and we have a conversation around this because it's like, as adults, we know I trust my wife explicitly. I know she loves me more than anybody in the world, and we have a great relationship. And yet, they know the deepest, darkest stuff, the triggers within us from our wounds and stuff. And so it's like that. I kind of hide behind that sometimes because it's like, well, crap, I'm gonna. I'm not going to completely be vulnerable like I am with my daughter because my wife, she knows that she could come back and hurt me, kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? Is that making sense?
100%. And this is why so many men, another reason why men don't open up is because they feel like if I do and I tell you exactly what I feel, you may weaponize that and use it against me. And that makes me uncomfortable.
Yes. Bingo. Spot on.
And they will sometimes, right? Not intentional. I don't think intentionally, but
as will we, Jason. Us to them.
Absolutely. You become so close, right? As one, and sometimes it happens, right? It's but you've got to recognize it, and now luckily I catch myself, and nowhere perfect, but I'm able to apologize and recognize it when it happens.
And look, this is the beauty and the crazy mystery of marriage. Singleness
100%.
is so selfish, right? Like if I choose to be single, I don't have to let anybody in. I don't have to be hurt. I can control everything. We were talking about this the other day as well. That, this dance called marriage, we get in here. It's like, well, what the crap? If I say this, you can hurt me. And that's exactly right. It's like, all right, are you going to choose to trust enough? And even if your wife comes back at you and says something ugly or does things wrong or triggers you from an unwounded place, are you willing to work through it? And it's like all this tension. She and I went through a marriage course, not to fix a problem, but to be preventative and proactive, to have a healthy marriage. And it's like, we see tension now as an opportunity. You don't have to, in the past, I ran from tension, because it's like, I want to avoid that. You can't avoid conflict. It's there. If you press into the conflict, press into the tension, it gives you an opportunity to grow, build muscle, and get through it, even stronger than you were before.
Yeah. Can I give you a little maybe a framework that might help with that tense conversations when they come up?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the reason why, we get into this challenging situation where maybe we say hurtful things or they say hurtful things, like you guys said, it's not always that they're intentionally being hurtful, but we may often interpret their words as hurtful because we're filtering their words through our insecurities and our own pride or our own ego, right? And so the reality is a lot of the times, and you guys will probably agree, there are things sometimes we say to our spouses and there's no ill will or no mean intent, but the way it's interpreted, you're like, what? I didn't mean that at all. Like, what are you talking about? Right. And so the problem with this is because remember, the words are coming from someone who thinks completely different than you, actually from like a fundamentally different place, who has their own set of insecurities and challenges and their own set of stressors. So they say it and you hear it, same words, but you're interpreting it with your own, like I said, frustrations, anxieties, you put your own masculine filter on your ego, your whatever, and then you interpret those words completely different. So if you've ever been in a situation where, like I've said to my wife verbatim, I'm like, I feel like I'm saying blue and you're hearing red. and I can say blue as much as I want, and all you freaking hear is red, right? And like, how are we both speaking in English, but don't understand how to communicate, right? And so a really simple framework to help interpret the meaning behind the words is called the story I'm telling myself. Have you guys heard of this before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, maybe your listeners haven't. So a way to sort of uncover the meaning behind the words is if you are talking to your spouse. And so I'll give you an example of a conversation that has happened in my home. My wife would say, you work too much and all you care about is work and you never spend time at home with us. Right now, I'm like, immediately, what she's saying and what I'm hearing are different. Right. So now what I think to do is I think, oh, she doesn't appreciate how I'm providing for this family. She thinks that all I care about is working and I don't care about them. And she doesn't care about how hard I am or how hard I'm working and how tired I am and how exhausted I am. All she wants to do is just hang out. Right. And so these are thoughts that go on in my mind sometimes. So what I'll say then is, hey, babe, when you say all I do is work and that, I don't, whatever, the story I'm telling myself is that you don't appreciate, my hard work, or is that you think that I don't care about you guys, as my children and my wife, or you don't think that fill in the blank, And she's like, whoa, I didn't mean that at all. She's like, actually, here's what I meant. I just want to spend more time with you because we're better as a family when you're around. You calm the place down, and I just miss you, and I just want to spend more time with you. And I'm like, what? Oh, well, that's what you want. It's because you care about me, because you want me, or okay, And so the story I'm telling myself is a way to help return the words back to them in the way that you've interpreted it, and then you give your spouse an opportunity to then correct that story for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And if you can use that framework back and forth, we do it all the time. And then you explain it to your wife or your partner and say, and you can pull it out at any time. Well, hey, babe, you know what? The story I'm telling myself when you say, whatever, fill it out. And it's amazing at dissolving potential conflict. Right?
100%. So yeah, I'm remarried, and after both my wife and I, we were remarried, and so divorced, and we both did the work afterwards, to where I think with any divorce, both sides bring contributions to the demise of a marriage. I would never say that one person or the other. There's all things we can always work on and get better at. And I wanted to make sure that things from my first marriage I didn't bring into my second. So we both did the work, a lot of work to make sure we show up our best. Obviously, we'll never get perfect, and we're always on journeys, and there's going to still be things. But to now have that awareness of the tendencies in my past, and so many times where I would not do that. The example you just gave, Mitchell, what I believed, now I'm running with that as truth. I made up that story. The story I'm telling myself is X, Y, Z, and I'm going full sprint, believing this. And now in this marriage, it's doing exactly that. And my wife actually has done, she practiced it more than I did when we ended up meeting and getting together. And she'll communicate very clearly like that of, Jonathan, what I heard was this, the story I make up is blah, blah, blah. And like that example you just shared, 9 out of 10 times when we hear it back, it is like contrasting 180-degree difference. Yeah. Like you just shared, it's like, oh, you missed me? You want me around? And I'm over here thinking you're unappreciative, you're ungrateful, you're unthankful, all these things, which can build up that bitterness, that resentment, ultimately lead to contempt. And all it was a little bit of misunderstanding and just asking that clarifying question. Hey, I just want to make sure I heard right, because this is the story I'm making up. And it goes back to how we started this podcast, was that these are simple. They're not always easy, but these are simple ways to reconnect and to really just reconnect with our spouse and, get back together. And it's just, I'm glad to hear that's not just me, Mitchell. So thank you for helping me not feel alone.
Yeah, man. And I'll just add something real quick to this, is just the concept of love and respect, and we talk about the needs of one another. And I thought that this was a fairly well-known, ideology, but it's really not. At the end of the day, so if I were to say to you, or actually, let me ask you, Jason, would you rather hear from your wife, I love you, or like, I respect you?
That's tough. I respect you is solid always, you know. But I get most of I love you, right? Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Because we want respect, right? By nature.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
If you were to ask a room, if you ask a room of 100 guys and say, what would you rather hear from your wife? I love you or I respect you? 90% of the guys will raise their hand and say, I want to hear that I'm respected.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so men, there's two things. We want to feel respected and we want to feel competent. And they usually go hand in hand. A woman needs to feel loved and cherished, right? And so if you think back to the times when you've been the most upset, the biggest fights you've had, it's a high probability is it if you were the one who was upset is because you felt disrespected or someone said something to make you feel incompetent, right? And if you trace back the conflict you had with your wife when she was really upset is because she felt unloved or like unseen or the things that we've talked about, right? And so when my wife comes up to me and says, I respect you, like I appreciate you so much. You're such a strong leader. You're such a great like an entrepreneur, and what you're doing is amazing. I would take that over I love you every single day.
And it
You know what I
puts
mean?
such wind in the sails. Like, whatever you woke up with, the discouragement, is trying to knock you out. You get that one little bit of encouragement from your wife. It's like, it's something you see in a movie, to where you can take on the world and you can, get a sword and you can go take out 1,000, people. And so it's amazing how just those words. And I think I can be guilty sometimes of desiring that so much to hear, but I need to pause and be like, am I giving that thing back to my wife, in the opposite way of that love, to where Mitchell, you gave beautiful examples. Hey, I'm thankful for what you do for the kids, what you do around the home, what you do for this or that, whatever, if the wife is working or, just fully, working with the kids, but to deliver that back, because that tendency for me is just to give it to me. But it's like, hold on, pause, make sure I'm giving that back and that's reciprocated.
Man, you get a little bit of respect. You talking like just got a little swag, get a little swag in your step, man. At the office, at home, it's like Jay Hill said, just fixing the remote, right? Like I'm always looking for stuff to fix because, like, hey, I'm like, oh, what that bulb needs replaced? Cool. I need to fix that. Man, I'm always fixing stuff because we yearn for that naturally. And another thing, ladies and gentlemen, is it's never too late. I was like, it's too late. It's too late. I've got two older boys and two younger girls, so both dynamics. And my boys, I was in a bad phase, eating like crap, unhealthy, like you, man, just going through the tornado of just crap, right? And at one point I was like, dude, it's too late. It's too late. Like I've already ruined them, right? And this and that. But no, I was like, I'm gonna, start actively pursuing this. And it was crazy. It was like I could see this shift in my son, right? I could see it. Like he would get out of those ruts, right? And I would take him to the gym with me and this and that. And finally, now, he's in the gym. He's telling me what to eat. He's knowledgeable of these foods and red dyes and processed foods and seed oils. And dude is just about to turn 18 on Friday, an adult, right? Like the metamorphosis, right? It was amazing over just a matter of a few years that completely made up for the years of where I just feel like I was a failure, right? I was killing it at business, right? But at home, no, not killing it, right?
Yeah.
Fitness was going downhill, health was going downhill, money was going uphill, right? Cars, vehicles, places, bank accounts, but then emotionally, spiritually, everything else was just horrible. And I felt that way. I was like, man, it's too late. But like, if it's just one thing, it's like, it's never too late, guys. Never too late. Start the day, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a one, it's one narrative, a lie, a belief script, a limiting self belief that we believe often is that it's too late. That's one of the five that I teach, and it's a false system that we believe, and we tell ourselves so that we can continue breaking promises and we continue living the way that we, the path of
Absolutely.
least resistance. But it's a lie, because you are, and I'll say this often, if you listen to the podcast as a man, and I know we're talking to the men a lot, but as a man, it's your responsibility to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Right? You may have heard that, but like a thermometer adjusts to the temperature of the room. They're constantly shifting to, oh, it's hot now, I'm hot. Oh, it's cold, I'm cold. I'm losing my wife is stressed out. The kids are stressed out. All right, now I'm stressed out. That's being a thermometer. A thermostat actually sets the tone.
Right.
It sets the emotional climate
Ooh.
of the home. And so when you show up, are you showing up with peace? Are you dialing it down and calming your family when you show up? And so your responsibility as a man, husband, father is to be the lowest heart rate in the room. And honestly, at the end of the day, if you can just be that and nothing else, then that's a huge win. And if you can just, before you walk in, lowest heartbeat in the room, let's go. You know what I mean? It's huge.
100%
I've improved
spot on.
my resting heart rate in the last 2 years tremendously. Like, yeah, dial it in, man. Biohacking, all the stuff, man. It's good for you all the way around, brother.
I think, as we wrap up this episode, like, just one of the last things is like progress over perfection. Jason knows this. I struggle. I'm like a recovering people pleaser, recovering perfectionist. And I would, both in the corporate world, and it's like in work, I could control so much. And so I never struggled with perfectionism, I struggled with perfectionism, but I pretty much executed every time. But at home, you have so many variables that are out of your control. And I would beat myself up as a husband, as a father, on all these levels of not being perfect. And so I had such an expectation on myself to do everything perfectly. And I'll tell you what, man, being a dad has taught me some of the most valuable lessons in life and business than anything else has. And for my little girl, somebody who's under 10 years old, to sit you down, look at you and say, Daddy, nobody's perfect. You're going to mess up. I mean, talk about just rips your heart out. Like, just this grace I get, this mercy I get, this wisdom I get from my little girl. And she's like, you're doing great. And so, both from our spouses, from our kids, when you get that encouragement, but just, progress, baby steps, just echoing what you just said, we can get so far and be like, well, crap, I've messed up my whole life. It's not going to get any better. Just one small change right now can take a massive impact. And Mitchell, as I heard what you were saying earlier, I just kept thinking of legacy, like the legacy you're leaving for your kids, man. Just because you grew up in a dysfunctional family, just because you had to raise 3 girls that were 10 years younger than you, from the dynamics that were there, the cards that were dealt, you shifted that, and you changed, the legacy that you're going to leave for your children, man. You're living it. And what a beautiful example. And, for us not to complain about the cards we got dealt with, it's more powerful. The fact that what you shared, you gained 60 pounds because of this crap at work. You're $100,000 in debt. You reconnected with your wife. You reclaimed your health. You did all these things. And now look. And so what beauty comes from these trials that we go through if we let it, instead of sit there and complain about it, to say, hey, I'm resilient. I overcame it. This is how I did. And it gives so much more credibility and authority for you to walk through with these men and say, look, you're going through this. I've done it too. Let me show you how to get there, man. So I just want to commend you and say thank you. The way you're living and leading by example, it's encouraging, inspiring, and we appreciate you a lot, man.
Thank you, man. I really, honestly, I really appreciate that. I appreciate your affirmation, man. And you're right. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and the best thing I can do is turn that trash into treasure. And, when I was asked that question at the funeral, my transformational moment was, are you living a life worthy of imitation? And so that's my answer to that question is, how can I live a life that's, imitatable? Is to use what I've learned to help transform the lives of as many men, husbands, and fathers as possible. And so I appreciate you guys, having this conversation with me. It's awesome. I love what you guys are doing as well. So I'm just glad to be here.
Awesome,
Well,
man.
we're glad to have you, man. You've got that. I mean, you just got that natural ability, Mitch. I can see why you're successful at what you do. And anybody listening, definitely go check him out. Look at his transformation. I mean, and let's face it, the kids now, they need this more than ever. The boys now, geez, we got our hands full, fellas. It's time to step up, right? Man up. Let's man up and step up and show up. Got to. We got some gaps to fill. That's what it is.
Mitchell.
So we appreciate you.
Yeah,
man.
we do. Mitchell, tell, halfway through the podcast, you had that gift for people that were listening. So just
That's
one more
right.
time, tell them about that gift and tell them how they can follow you, your website, social platforms, how to get connected with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking, man, and I appreciate that. So yeah, what you can do is download, and I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. But it's just called the Connection Code. It's 50 of my favorite questions to spark the fun and get the fire back in your marriage, and it's awesome. I've spent a lot of time researching the best questions, and I've tested these on my own wife, and it's awesome. So, and it covers everything from like fun to like it is going to get spicy. I mean, it's going to get hot and heavy. You ask all the questions, so it's real good. But yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, I do three things, man. I connect with people and I help people through content, through courses, and through coaching. So my content is the Dad Nation podcast. You can listen to that and on any platform. YouTube is where I'm currently investing some time into. And then my courses, I have a course called The High Performance Husband, which is essentially everything I teach my one-to-one clients in a digital format. It's powerful. And then, of course, my coaching. I have something called the Dad Nation Coalition, which is a community of like-minded men who are after the same thing, to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness. And so we see transformations every single day. And so if this conversation has resonated with you and you're listening to the show, go ahead, download the gift, listen to the podcast. And if you want, you can jump on a call with me. Be happy to talk about anything that you're going through. And actually, I'll say this, in the form, if you do fill out the form to connect, just say that you heard about me through the Love Your Brand podcast, and I'll make sure that I get on the call personally and not just somebody from my team, because I want to make a personal connection with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, he said personally, you're going to get him personally. So you better mention it. And those questions, hey, I'm going to download them because Rachel's going to be expecting them.
It's good, man.
She's going to listen and she's going to be like, where's those questions, those 50 questions at?
Rachel, get him to download it.
And she'll know they're not mine. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, but I'll give you all the glory, but I will get the glory for execution. So we appreciate it so much, man. We'll drop the notes and I love it. It's blowing up. Appreciate it, Mitchell.
Thank you for having me on the show, guys. I genuinely appreciate your time, and it was so good to be here.
Awesome, man. All right, until next time, thanks for joining, everybody. Peace.
Thanks for listening and joining us on the Love Your Brand podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember, share the love.